Tensions between Russia and the U.S. have simmered through years of aerial confrontations, from intercepts in Syria to dangerous encounters over the Black Sea. U.S. patrols near Russia's borders often spark disputes, while Russia responds with bold tactics, like deploying drones and fighters in close proximity. A collision between a Russian drone and a U.S. F-35 over the Baltic skies in 2025 pushed tensions to a breaking point, triggering a chain of events that rocked the world. Below is the account of this conflict, from an aerial mishap to its unforeseen global consequences.
On a frigid morning in 2025, over the Baltic skies near Russia's border, a U.S. F-35, equipped with stealth technology and advanced radar, conducted a NATO patrol mission. A Russian military drone, deployed from Kaliningrad, suddenly approached, broadcasting warnings demanding the U.S. jet leave what Russia claimed as sensitive airspace. The F-35 pilot held course, radar locked on target, the atmosphere taut. Abruptly, the Russian drone accelerated and collided with the F-35's wing, damaging an engine and briefly sending the jet into a spin. The pilot activated emergency systems, but the Baltic skies became a flashpoint, poised to erupt.
The collision sparked an immediate response. Russian Su-57 fighters scrambled from a nearby base, while the U.S. deployed additional F-35s from a carrier in the Baltic Sea. NATO air defenses along Poland and Lithuania lit up with alerts as Russian sonar and radar jamming disrupted the F-35's communications. A dogfight erupted, with air-to-air missiles streaking across the sky. The F-35's defense systems downed several Russian drones, but debris rained down, igniting fires on the sea below. The confrontation turned the Baltic skies into a blazing battlefield, with black smoke and explosions spreading wide.
The conflict spilled into cyberspace and outer space. Viruses targeted the F-35's control systems, disrupting links to NATO bases. The U.S. countered by crippling radar at Russian bases in Kaliningrad. In space, Russian and U.S. military satellites clashed in digital attacks, disrupting global positioning systems. Fighters from both sides battled over the Baltic, with hypersonic missiles slicing through clouds. NATO's advanced air defenses intercepted most Russian missiles, but debris from the explosions shook the ground below. The war expanded as NATO allies joined, turning the Baltic into a multinational hotspot, where the sky burned with smoke and fire.
The conflict escalated beyond control when Russia destroyed a U.S. reconnaissance satellite with an anti-satellite missile. The U.S. retaliated by neutralizing 3 Russian space control stations in Siberia using directed energy weapons launched from orbit. These strikes disrupted global communication networks, causing panic in financial and military hubs. NATO bases in Europe faced Russian ballistic missile attacks, while the U.S. deployed air forces from Germany and Norway. The global economy reeled as satellite navigation systems failed, paralyzing air and sea transport. Orbital imagery showed debris fields and smoke from destroyed stations, marking an unprecedented phase of warfare.
The aftermath of the space attacks triggered a global energy crisis. Disrupted satellites crippled oil and gas supply networks as maritime routes and pipelines reliant on GPS ground to a halt. Nations dependent on energy scrambled for scarce resources, forging unexpected alliances to restore order. Autonomous robot teams were deployed to clear orbital debris, while relief ships delivered emergency fuel to affected regions. The U.S. and Russia, facing mutual devastation, paused military actions to focus on energy stabilization. Yet the battlefield remained littered with wreckage, with insurgent groups exploiting the chaos to rise. The crisis temporarily curbed the war, but new alliances and lingering energy threats signaled an unstable future. As a journalist covering the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict, I've tracked the intense drone and armored warfare since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. Recent real-world reports highlight Ukraine's remarkable success in destroying Russian assets. In 2024 alone, Ukrainian forces neutralized over 3,000 Russian tanks using attack drones and other tactics, as noted by U.S. commanders. Massive Russian drone assaults, like the August 2025 barrage of 574 drones and 40 missiles, saw Ukraine downing 52 drones and losing 50 more through electronic warfare. Ukraine's counterstrikes, including one of its largest drone attacks on Russian airfields and oil depots, have turned the tide in key battles. Drawing from these actual events, I've crafted a fictional war scenario, imagining a massive Russian assault met with devastating Ukrainian resistance, blending real geopolitical flashpoints with speculative escalation for dramatic effect. This is purely hypothetical, exploring the what-if of turning an enemy's arsenal into a firestorm and the unforeseen consequences that follow.
On a frozen dawn in 2025, Russia unleashed its most ambitious assault yet on Ukrainian defenses near Kharkiv, deploying 180 Shahed-style drones and 120 T-90 tanks in a coordinated blitz. Inspired by real massive drone attacks, such as the 2024 barrage of 574 drones in a single night, the swarm darkened the sky, targeting Ukrainian air defenses and supply lines. The tanks rumbled forward, their cannons pounding fortified positions, echoing real losses where Russia has seen over 3,000 tanks destroyed since the war began. Ukrainian radars lit up with alerts as electronic warfare units jammed signals, but the sheer volume overwhelmed initial responses. The battlefield trembled, setting the stage for a catastrophic turn. Ukrainian defenses sprang into action, transforming the Russian advance into a blazing inferno. FPV drones, akin to those in real footage where Ukrainian operators incinerated Russian tanks with thermite payloads, swarmed the armored columns. Precision strikes ignited fuel tanks, turning 120 Russian vehicles into a chain of explosions, their wreckage littering the frozen fields like in documented catastrophic blasts. High-altitude interceptors and anti-air systems downed waves of drones, with 52 shot down outright and 50 more neutralized by electronic jamming, mirroring a real December 2024 attack where Ukraine downed over half of 110 incoming drones. The sky filled with fireballs as the Russian assault crumbled into a self-inflicted firestorm of debris and flames.
The conflict escalated into cyberspace and the skies. Ukrainian cyber units, building on real successes like disrupting Russian communications, deployed AI viruses to hack drone swarms, causing them to malfunction and crash into their own tank formations. Russian hypersonic missiles retaliated, but Ukraine's mobile air defenses intercepted many, debris raining down like an actual strikes on air bases. Ukrainian fighter jets downed Russian Su-34s, reminiscent of real drone strikes on Borisoglebsk Air Base, targeting fuel and warehouses. The firestorm intensified as electronic warfare blinded radars, turning the front line into a chaotic blaze of misdirected fire and exploding munitions.
The firestorm spread, drawing in reinforcements and escalating into multi-front chaos. Russian artillery pounded relentlessly, but Ukraine's HIMARS systems, proven in real operations destroying Russian tanks, unleashed precision barrages, obliterating supply depots, and turning armored advances into smoldering ruins. Neighboring regions ignited as Ukrainian drones struck oil depots deep in Russian territory, inspired by Ukraine's largest ever drone attack in September 2024, targeting refineries and power stations. International borders tensed, with Allied forces scrambling jets as the conflict threatened spillover, echoing real fears of escalation amid Russia's battlefield losses, including 1,149 armored vehicles since January 2024. The inferno consumed vast swaths of the landscape.
In an unexpected turn, an international coalition of neutral European and Asian nations deployed a peacekeeping force to the conflict zone, using warships and surveillance drones to establish a buffer zone near Kharkiv. Air and ground patrol robots, equipped with AI sensors, sealed off Russian supply routes, halting further drone attacks. Ukrainian airstrikes on Russian bases tapered off as the coalition opened safe corridors for humanitarian aid, delivering food and medicine to besieged cities. Though hostilities paused, the battlefield remained littered with tank wrecks and drone debris, and underground insurgent groups began regrouping. Russia's firestorm was extinguished, but the international intervention left an unstable region, with new plots simmering beneath the surface, foreshadowing future conflicts.
As a journalist covering international maritime tensions, I've followed the escalating confrontations in the South China Sea for years. The recent real-world incident near Scarborough Shoal, where Chinese Navy and Coast Guard vessels collided with a Philippine ship while attempting to drive it away, set the stage for heightened U.S. involvement. This event, occurring just days before the U.S. deployed the USS Higgins, a guided missile destroyer, and the USS Cincinnati to the disputed waters, underscores the fragile balance in the region. Beijing's claim that it expelled the USS Higgins from the area, denied by the USS Navy, adds fuel to the fire. Drawing from these actual events, I've crafted a fictional war scenario that imagines how such a challenge could spiral into full-scale conflict, blending real geopolitical flashpoints with speculative escalation for dramatic effect. This is purely hypothetical, exploring the what-if of a big mistake in challenging the wrong ship.
In the choppy waters of the South China Sea near Scarborough Shoal, tensions boiled over on a stormy August morning in 2025. Inspired by real incidents where Chinese vessels aggressively maneuvered against foreign ships, a Chinese Navy destroyer shadowed the USS Higgins during a routine Freedom of Navigation operation, FONOP. The Higgins, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer equipped with Aegis radar and Tomahawk missiles, was patrolling to assert international rights in the disputed area, much like U.S. warships have done in response to Chinese claims. The Chinese ship broadcast warnings, demanding the Higgins depart, echoing Beijing's real-world assertions of sovereignty. But the Higgins held course, its crew on high alert. Suddenly, the Chinese vessel cut dangerously close, forcing evasive maneuvers, a tactic seen in past close encounters. Radars locked, and the sea turned into a powder keg.
The challenge turned aggressive as the Chinese ship deployed water cannons and sonar pings, disrupting the Higgins systems, methods reminiscent of actual confrontations where Chinese forces have used non-lethal but provocative tactics against U.S. and allied vessels. In this fictional twist, a miscalculation led to a collision. The Chinese destroyer grazed the Higgins hull, sparking fires on both sides. Alarms blared aboard the Higgins as damage control teams rushed to seal breaches. Drawing from real reports of Chinese ships colliding with smaller vessels near Scarborough Shoal, this incident ignited chaos. The U.S. ship fired warning flares, but the Chinese vessel interpreted it as hostility and launched anti-ship drones, forcing the Higgins to activate its close-in weapons system, CIWS, for defense. Waves crashed as missiles streaked across the sky, turning the challenge into a firefight.
With communications jammed, a tactic echoing real cyber intrusions attributed to Chinese forces in the region, the conflict spilled into the digital realm. Hypothetical AI viruses from the Chinese side targeted the Higgins navigation, while U.S. countermeasures disrupted the opposing fleet's radar. Overhead, fighter jets from a nearby U.S. carrier scrambled, clashing with Chinese aircraft in dogfights inspired by tense aerial encounters over the South China Sea. Hypersonic missiles, like those boasted in Chinese military parades, streaked toward the Higgins, but its Aegis system intercepted most, debris raining into the sea. The battle expanded as allied Philippine forces, drawing from their real collisions with Chinese ships, joined the fray with patrol boats, turning the shoal into a multi-nation hotspot.
The big mistake unfolded as the skirmish drew in reinforcements. Chinese carriers moved in, echoing Beijing's real militarization of artificial islands, while U.S. strike groups converged from the Pacific. Submarines lurked beneath, launching torpedoes in a cat-and-mouse game. Islands near Scarborough Shoal became launch pads for ground-based missiles, inspired by actual disputes over the feature. Civilian shipping halted, economies trembled, and international outrage mounted as satellite footage, similar to released videos of recent incidents, showed the carnage. The Higgins, damaged but defiant, sank the challenging Chinese ship with a barrage of Harpoon missiles. But the victory was Pyrrhic, with losses mounting on both sides.
Under UN pressure, a ceasefire emerged after days of intense fighting, with both sides claiming victory, much like the rhetorical battles in real diplomatic spats. The South China Sea simmered, scarred by sunken vessels and disrupted trade routes. Reconstruction pledges followed, but underground cyber skirmishes continued, hinting at future flare-ups. This fictional escalation from a single challenge highlights the perils of miscalculation in disputed waters, where real incidents, like those near Scarborough Shoal, could tip the balance toward catastrophe.